Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for People's Response Act Day, where we will learn a little bit more about how we as communities are responding to the reality that only our communities can keep us safe. My name is Kayla Reed. I'm the Executive Director of Action St. Louis. I use she and her pronouns. Action St. Louis is a racial justice organization working to build Black political power. We are part of the Movement for Black Lives ecosystem, and I'm so glad to be with you here today. St. Louis is a very important city working to reimagine, re-envision, and implement new strategies that actually keep our community safe. 7 years ago, St. Louis changed the conversation and sparked a national movement after the killing of Michael Brown. In those 7 years, we have worked to ensure our communities are truly safe by investing in the needs of our people and moving away from harmful systems that arrest and incarcerate our communities. One of those policies that really centers our folks and what keeps us safe is the People's Response Act, which we're going to talk a lot about today. The People's Response Act is a critical piece of legislation that creates a new public safety department in the Department of Health, Human Health and Services. It invests resources in community-based organizations to implement non-carceral investments in public safety, including dedicated grants for violence prevention. It incentivizes local and state governments to shrink their criminal legal systems and invest in community-led, non-carceral, and non-punitive investments in public safety. The People's Response Act is a critical and transformative piece of legislation, and we are so excited to talk about it today and see it pass. This morning, we will hear from several members of Congress who are supporting the People's Response Act. First up is my Congresswoman, Congresswoman Cori Bush, who I met in the streets of Ferguson, and we knew at that time we needed to invest in alternatives to carceral solutions to keep our community safe. She is the champion of the People's Response Act, and I'm so grateful for her leadership in Congress, and we'll hear some remarks from her right now.
Daniel Prude.
I love my father dearly. To see him in that state it was heartbreaking.
Tatiana Jefferson.
Tatiana is her name. Once again, a person killed in their own home.
Walter Wallace.
Less than a month after Wedded Bliss, Walter Wallace Jr. was shot by police while in the midst of a mental health crisis.
All were having mental health crises or in need of a wellness check. All were killed by police. All could be alive today if the first responder wasn't someone with a gun and a badge. When Black people need help, calling 911 too often becomes a death sentence. We demand a better way forward. It's time to respond by transforming our approach to community safety. It's time for a new generation of first responders, health experts who will truly serve and protect our communities. It's time for a new agency rooted in public health and dedicated to community safety. It's time to support organizations on the ground that are already doing this work. We can build a world where calling for help leads to safety and care for all. It's time to answer the demand for real community safety, starting with the People's Response Act.
Yes, we can build a world where we have true community safety, and that when our people need help, they get the help that they need. We are so grateful to Congresswoman Bush for her leadership in introducing this historic piece of legislation. And we're so grateful for the many members of Congress who support the People's Response Act. We'll hear from one of those next as we hear remarks from Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib.
Hey everyone, it's Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. Thank you so much to the Coalition for continued efforts in making sure that we all feel safe in our neighborhoods. And we know that we need care, not criminalization, especially in communities like mine. We're frontline communities. We're the third poorest congressional district in the country. And we know that having more police in our schools, in our neighborhoods, is not keeping us safe and is not the right path in truly making sure that we uplift every single one of our neighbors. So I want you all to know that I'm standing strong and speaking truth to power as we understand that we need a different way of really truly feeling safe in our communities. And that is People's Response Act. That is different alternatives like the Breathe Act and so much more. So please join me in supporting this incredibly important legislation, also in changing and reimagining what it can truly feel like, again, to put care first, not criminalization.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Tlaib, for those incredible remarks. We're so grateful to have bold women of color leading this conversation about prioritizing care and not criminalization. We are going to keep it moving and pass it to North Carolina Congresswoman Alma Adams.
Greetings. I'm Congresswoman Alma Adams, and I proudly represent the 12th District of North Carolina. Thank you for your invitation to speak here today. I'm glad to be here as an original co-sponsor of my colleague, Representative Cori Bush's legislation, the People's Response Act. As you all know, this act aims to expand resources to holistically support communities of color and in particular, Black communities. There is no question we must support survivors of mass incarceration, rape, and other forms of sexual assault, along with other victims. Over the past year and a half, we've heard much dialogue from law enforcement, from civil rights groups, and from members of Congress after George Floyd's name became synonymous with the civil rights movement of this century. This dialogue has trickled over to the private sector. The private sector, too, is having more thoughtful conversation about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I view dialogue as a precursor to thoughtful action. We must fix our criminal justice system. We have to look at our communities' needs, and be responsive to our community's needs. Public safety is a public health issue, period. Our communities must heal and grow together. Opportunities must be provided to our young people. When communities are well-fed and well-educated, we are being responsive to crises that are in communities. The crisis of poverty, of mental health, and intergenerational trauma. Undeserved communities need support. Investing in our communities substantially and consistently is key to combating poor health outcomes and crime. When we invest in our communities' health and safety, we are investing in our community's future. As a professor, I know how bright young people can be, and we should be doing everything that we can to ensure that every young person has an opportunity to grow up safe and healthy so that they contribute to our future as a country. Our communities need quality, equality, dignity, and good health for a bright future. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. And it's absolutely true that public safety is a public health issue. Our society continues to invest in carceral solutions that cause us harm. The People's Response Act is about creating a future where all of us can thrive by moving actual resources, real money, to alternatives that promote safety. So excited that so many powerful Congress folks are showing up and taking the mandate to ensure that our communities are safe and well. Finally, we're going to hear from one of the original co-sponsors of the People's Response Act, Jan Schakowsky.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, and I am so proud to join my colleagues, Cori Bush, Ayanna Pressley, and Pramila Jayapal in introducing the People's Response Act. This would ask for, instead of incarceration, instead of criminalization, that we have a public health response to public safety. We can do this. People who have mental illness, who are homeless, who have substance control issues, substance abuse issues, should not find themselves in jail. They should find the kind of care that they need. Our legislation poses a smart and effective alternative. We say that the Department of Health and Human Services should set up a special department that would fund and coordinate research and provide grants for what we call crisis responsible approaches. And I am really excited that I'm working with my colleagues and with so many different organizations to make this really happen. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. I don't know about you, but I'm incredibly excited to have such bold leaders having a conversation that's so important to our communities and to our movement. This system continues to criminalize the poor. It continues to harm those already suffering. It does not keep us safe. The People's Response Act is bold and visionary, and it invests into our communities to keep us well and to help us thrive. And we are so grateful for all the folks who spoke today, all the members of Congress who are leading the charge to re-envision something new and to keep our community safe. Join us throughout the day today to hear more about the People's Response Act, organizers and activists and other leaders doing the work right now to make this a reality. Thank you so much for hanging with me for a little while this morning. Have a great day.